Have you ever really looked at your shadow? It has been with you since the day you were born. It follows you everywhere. When you stop, it stops. When you walk, it walks. When you raise your hand, it does exactly the same thing. It never speaks. It never complains. It never gets tired. It simply follows you every single second of your life. Ever since I was a child, I've always found that a little strange. How does it know exactly what I'm about to do? Of course, we all know the scientific answer. It's just light and physics. But what if, just for a moment, that wasn't true? What if one day your shadow simply decided to stop copying you? It sounds impossible, like something from a horror story. But nearly 180 years ago, someone imagined exactly that. And the story they wrote is still considered one of the strangest shadow stories ever told. It begins with a quiet scholar. He spends his days reading, writing, and studying. After traveling from the cold north to a warm southern country, he notices something unusual one evening. Across the street stands a mysterious house. Every window glows with a beautiful light unlike anything he has ever seen. Curious, he smiles to himself and jokingly says to his own shadow, "Why don't you go inside and find out what's there?" He laughs. After all, it's only a joke. But then something impossible happens. His shadow slowly separates from his feet. It crosses the empty street, slips quietly through the doorway, and disappears inside. The door closes. Everything becomes silent. The next morning, the scholar wakes up, expecting everything to be normal. But when he steps outside and looks down, his shadow is gone. At first, he feels surprised. But strangely, he isn't afraid. Days pass. Little by little, a new shadow begins to appear beneath his feet. It's much smaller, much weaker. Almost like a young shadow learning to exist. Eventually, life seems normal again. Or at least, that's what he believes. Years later, there's a knock at his door. Standing outside is a well-dressed gentleman. Elegant clothes, a walking cane, a confident smile. The scholar has never seen him before. The stranger smiles and quietly asks, "Don't you remember me? I'm your old shadow." For a moment, neither of them says a word. The impossible has returned. The shadow explains everything. Inside the mysterious house, it discovered knowledge beyond anything ordinary people could imagine. It traveled across the world. It became rich, powerful, respected. Kings welcomed it. Professors admired it. Important people listened whenever it spoke, and no one ever questioned where it came from. After all, who would believe that a respected gentleman had once been nothing more than someone's shadow? Soon, the shadow falls in love with a princess. But there is one problem. If anyone discovers the truth, everything will fall apart. So the shadow makes the scholar an offer. "Become my shadow. Serve me for the rest of your life, and you'll never have to worry about anything again." The scholar is horrified. "No. I'll tell everyone who you really are." The shadow doesn't argue. It simply smiles, because it already knows exactly how the story will end. The very next day, the scholar is arrested. The shadow calmly tells everyone, "This poor creature is my shadow. It has gone mad. It believes it's human. People laugh. No one believes the scholar. He is declared insane, locked away. And on the very day the shadow marries the princess, the real man is quietly executed. Outside, the city celebrates. Cannons fire into the sky. Music fills the streets. People cheer for the royal wedding. But the only real human in the story is already dead. Thankfully, that was only a story, right? But here's the strange part. Science has discovered something that feels surprisingly similar. In 2006, doctors in Switzerland were preparing a young woman for epilepsy surgery. As part of the procedure, they gently stimulated a tiny area of her brain. The moment they did, she suddenly froze. Then she quietly said, "There is someone standing behind me." She turned around. No one was there.
Still here.
Yet she could still feel the presence. When she sat down, it sat behind her. When she leaned forward, it leaned forward. When she hugged her knees, it felt as though the invisible figure hugged her from behind. She knew it wasn't real. She knew the doctors were performing an experiment. And yet, she couldn't stop turning around to look. Researchers later discovered that temporarily disrupting a small region of the brain, called the temporoparietal junction, can confuse the brain's internal map of the body. Instead of recognizing a second body map as your own, your brain can experience it as someone else, a silent, shadow-like presence. Long before neuroscience existed, people all around the world had already created their own explanations. Many believed a shadow was far more than darkness. Some believed it was part of the soul. In ancient Egypt, people believed the shadow continued its journey after death. Among the Zulu, the same word could mean both shadow and soul. On the island of Wetar, people believed that harming someone's shadow could also harm the person. Others feared that if a shadow ever abandoned its owner, death would soon follow. Today, we understand these as cultural beliefs rather than scientific facts, but they reveal something fascinating. For thousands of years, people from completely different parts of the world looked at the exact same shadow and asked exactly the same question. Could it be something more? So why does your shadow really copy you? The answer is beautifully simple. Light travels in straight lines. Your body blocks part of that light. The dark shape left behind is your shadow. Because your body blocks the light in real time, your shadow copies every movement perfectly. It isn't alive. It doesn't think. It doesn't make decisions. It simply follows the laws of physics. And yet, that simple patch of darkness has inspired myths, stories, scientific discoveries, and questions that humanity has been asking for thousands of years. So maybe the strangest thing about your shadow isn't that it copies you. Maybe the strangest thing is that we've spent our entire lives walking beside it without ever truly looking at it. Curiosity never ends, and neither do our discoveries. Subscribe to Curioverse X for more mind-blowing mysteries. Stay curious. See you next time.